Hello again, everyone. We are about to head into session number 2 of 6 on day 3 of this WFS Live powered by Ronaldo. Make sure, by the way, that you check out all of the functionality on the app, the networking, the exhibitors. And if you want to engage directly with this session, there are 3 ways to do it. Via the chat. If you've got a question, put it in the questions tab so it doesn't get lost and we can search it out quickly, and also get involved in the polls as well. Now, if you are a European club or league, your main way of engaging with fans in other parts of the world is, of course, with the live matches themselves. Now, as coronavirus spread, obviously that was no longer possible, but some clubs made real efforts to keep faraway fans close. Bayern Munich, for example, opened up their online OTT video channel for free during lockdown. In Spain, we had the hashtag LaLiga Santander challenge, pitting different La Liga players against each other playing FIFA, with Real Madrid's Marco Asensio walking away with the title. That proved incredibly popular. But of course, right now, connections go beyond just content. What about real action? Well, Manchester United worked with one fan club in India to make a donation to an NGO in Kolkata that is helping tackle the pandemic. And back the other way, because it is a two-way street with this kind of thing, a fan club in Singapore took part in Juventus's hashtag Distanti ma Uniti video campaign. Distanti ma Uniti means distant but united, and that raised money for the fight against COVID-19 in the badly hit Italian region of Piedmont. It's still engagement, but just very different in extraordinary times. So what happens now? Well, the key is still accessibility, but in this new normal, is there another way of providing more of those live connections with the teams, more live, more in-person, more digital experience that the fans crave? And we know that they will respond in Asia, where they have a young, a dynamic, and a very, very passionate football fan base. Clubs, leagues and brands can all benefit, of course, but how does the landscape look? Well, let's find out in the company of 3 top speakers: Managing Director of Southeast Asia, Australia, Japan and South Korea for LaLiga, Ivan Codina, Head of APAC for Bundesliga International, that's Kevin Sim, and Senior Manager of Global Sports Digital Strategy at Rakuten, Vanessa Asell Tsuruga, and your moderator, who I had the pleasure of working with and sharing the stage with at WFS Asia last year, founder of Futbolita, Hashim. Ash, this is going to be a fascinating panel. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, David. Once again, welcome everyone to the WFS Live. We have a very interesting topic today, of course, about fan engagement, really the after effect and the new normal for Asia across fan engagement. As David has already introduced our 3 very important panelists who are leaders across the football world in Asia, of course, I'm just going to repeat their names again. Ivan Codina, the Managing Director for LaLiga in Southeast Asia, Japan and Korea. Gracias, Ivan, for joining this panel today. We also have Kevin Sim, the Head of Asia Pacific for the Bundesliga. And rounding up the panel, of course, we have Vanessa Asell Tsuruga, the Senior Manager, Global Sports and Digital Strategy for Rakuten. Now, of course, Asia has been a very interesting region traditionally as well in the last couple of years for fan engagement and football. And recently also in Asia, we saw an increased and renewed interest for Asian football, particularly with the restart of the K-League, right? So, I mean, a lot of people on social media, a lot of fans were really excited when the league restarted. So maybe, Ivan, I can start with you. What do you think this means for Asian football?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's great to be here today. Good afternoon, everyone from Singapore. Thank you for the invite, and it's a pleasure to be with all my industry colleagues in this panel. What that means is that in the end, we are in a situation that is completely unprecedented for everyone, but all these organizations that have been able to understand or to read, the actual situation, and they will be able to identify different opportunities. And we have the case of the K-League. That was the first league that was able to resume the competition, and they had a wonderful opportunity to reach out, an audience that probably would never have been able to reach if it was not for the actual situation. So we will be seeing, more and more of these opportunities. And I think that it's still, very a lot of uncertainty and a lot of difficult times ahead, but also in every challenging situation, there's always, a big opportunity as well.
And Kevin, what do you have to say about that? I'm sure you were excited to see our own Asian league. Although you from Bundesliga, clearly you want to see Asian football succeed as well. So what are your thoughts on having that back?
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to have the K League restart, because I think what it does, it sets an important precedence in terms of how football can resume in a pandemic. I think let's not make a mistake. I think we acknowledge that this pandemic is still ongoing, and is still an ongoing situation that all of us have to manage and deal with. And obviously, we have to deal with a great degree of care and sensitivity. But the fact that at least some competitions can resume gives a lot of inspiration and hope for other competitions to see that there is a way to restart. It provides a good sort of framework that others can look at and say, hey, I can actually take this and implement it. Obviously, each market and each situation is different, but we can actually take a glean from the experience and take it into our own situation. It's a very similar situation from our league as well.
And we will definitely touch on a lot of that later. But Vanessa, do you want to add on to that, given the fact that you are in the Japan region? I was going to ask you this a bit later, but since football will restart in Japan, with, I believe, fans will be able to enter stadiums on July the 10th. So that's exciting as well for fans in Japan, right?
No, absolutely. I think coming from a company like Rakuten, which actually means optimism in Japanese. I mean, of course, we're applauding, these steps forward, but we're also obviously cautiously optimistic, because there are plans to open games already on Friday. There will be 5,000 fans allowed, and from August 1st, J-League is going to allow the stadiums up to about 50% capacity. So at the end of the day, we're happy that things are moving on, and I would really like to thank all the fans that have waited for this great moment.
Great stuff, Vanessa. I mean, obviously, this conversation is very much about fans. So, Ivan, I'm going to go to you right now. LaLiga obviously have been out there in trying to get fans to be more engaged during this period of time. So, what was really LaLiga's strategy in adapting to broadcasting, especially during this COVID-19 era?
Well, here I have to say thanks to Kevin. Obviously, the Bundesliga show us a little bit the way. If we look at the top European leagues, and the likes of the K League, so there was some key learnings for us to prepare for the resume of our competition. Our main objective was to see how we could, replace or minimize the impact of the lack of fans in the stadium, which obviously is impossible, but at least to minimize it. So we had some very interesting actions that we took care of. Number one would be in partner with our global partner EA. We tried to we had access to the sound atmosphere sound that they record from each of the stadiums, and we use it for every single fit of our matches, so the fans can actually feel that there is still some atmosphere around going on in the empty stadiums. So this has a software that actually if there is a goal or there is a foul or is some key action in the game, it reacts so that the level of the noise it goes up. So that was just something that we implemented that it seemed to be very well received by our fans. Then we also try to look at the different camera angles, to see how we can best, capture the moment of the game. We try to delete or to get rid of these angles where it shows empty stadiums. So we are now able to capture all the angles where normally we would not be able to put a camera because the fans are sitting there. We've been able to replace the stands, with a digital stand, fans picture that shows that the stadiums are not empty. Well, these kind of things in the end, help to make the fans feel that the stadium is, still they can focus on the game and it's not the emptiness of the stadium. So those things have been key in the implementation of the resume of the competition. One thing that is very important in Spain is the summertime. So we had to include some, water break in both half of the match, because of the temperatures are high in Europe and especially in Spain at this time of the year. So all this, has, helped, us to get our product, ready for the fans to enjoy, the LaLiga, again. So these are the things that we've been focusing on.
Thanks, Ivan. Now, moving to you, Kevin. I mean, Bundesliga set the tone, I guess, for the rest of Europe with that Dortmund-Schalke game. I think almost every football fan was tuned in on that Friday night to watch football after 3 months, I believe, of no action. I was one of them, so I was super excited to see football back again. So, with the entire world watching the Bundesliga, how did the league adapt to that situation to meet all these new fans? What had to change?
I think first and foremost, I want to make sure that we also acknowledge that this was not possible if not for the collective effort of everyone in the community. I mean, from the league itself, we worked very closely with the clubs and as well as the government and authorities. Obviously, we don't really have we don't really want to have games without fans. But at the same time, we also want to make sure that that we could also give a slice of normality back. And obviously, we want to restart as part of our commitments to our both domestically as well as internationally. And the medical concept was key to that. In terms of that, I mean, obviously, the restart of the league was given that we were the first international league to be able to do so, did give us a unique opportunity to a certain degree, where we were able to be broadcasted with a lot more attention. I mean, just taking the sense of the month of May, in the 4 weeks, we had close to 90 over 1,000 articles that was just covered on the Bundesliga's restart. And I think that is a very, very impressive number. And obviously we have taken a lot of that, the fans on board, and giving them an opportunity to see the game that they perhaps, as what Ivan is saying, maybe for fans in other markets that have never tuned into the Bundesliga, have taken some appreciation while the other leagues were unable to restart at that point in time. So I think we made a lot of efforts in terms of during the break. We made sure that there was content that was provided to all of our partners during the break between the start of the league. But at the same time, I think we used obviously the opportunity to engage with them. A lot of international media approached us to understand the hygiene concept that we put up, as well as the restart of the league. And I think that is one of the many things that we did that was, I guess, well appreciated by the fans as a whole.
I'm sure Vanessa as well, since Rakuten is very much a brand in Japan that everyone is familiar with. So you as a company, you guys are familiar with the fan personalized concept. So maybe you can take me through what is the mentality of fans in Japan like, and what were their habits during that time of viewing sports, and now that it's coming back again?
Sure. So thanks for asking about the Japanese fans. I think they stand as sort of a model community of fandom, right? Very law-abiding, very respectful. You've seen them cleaning up after the games. I mean, they really serve as like model citizens for not only how to be a fan, but I think being good humans as well. And naturally, I live in Japan, so I like it here. Of course, the fans have stayed very, very supportive during this during the lockdown. We have seen merchandise sales going up, which means that they have been supporting, even when the games haven't been going on. And we had a really good example of fan engagement with the first Vissel Kobe game when the league started last weekend. And this is when Vissel Kobe was playing against Hiroshima. And we had a together campaign where fans submitted their own fan messages, and we had the fan messages going around on the LED, and then a social connection to that to make sure it had a second life on digital. So it was a really good moment of coming together. And for us, this whole pandemic has been a time of being together. So together is a word that we've been using across many campaigns, and maybe I'll have a chance to talk a little bit more about it later in the panel.
For sure. So maybe we can go now to some of the initiatives that some of the leagues and associations have taken when it comes to fan engagement. So for Ivan, we were speaking as well a bit about some of LaLiga's initiatives like Back to Win and also the Applause to Infinity. So maybe you can tell us how was these initiatives received in Asia, and also what was the goal of these activations?
Yes, these are some of the most remarkable initiatives that we've done. The Applause to Infinite is a beautiful initiative aiming to honor and provide tribute to everyday heroes fighting in the front line against the pandemic. So basically, it captures the applause of La Liga fans from around the world and is played inside each of the stadium during the 20th minute of every fixture. This also acts as a way of encouragement to the players and who are reminded that the world is watching, basically, right? So in Asia, as in many other parts of the world, the initiative was also very well received, especially from La Liga fans in Japan and Indonesia. Then the back to win, the hashtag back to win has been used to gather all the 160 initiatives that we came up with ahead of the resume of the competition. And the meaning of it is that is just to send a message, to the fans that that we are back. Like that already by being back is resuming to the competition is already a win for everyone. No, sending a little bit of a message, to the society, a little bit of the light at the end of the tunnel, especially back then when we were still in a way worse situation that we look now we are a little bit better, right? So don't worry, I'm not gonna go over the all 160 tips, but I will probably highlight two or three of them. One of them is the United Streets of La Liga. So it's basically an urban art campaign across the 5 continents, and here in Asia we had art street in streets in Vietnam, in Indonesia, Hong Kong, Australia. So that is what was one of the initiatives. Then we had some virtual press conferences with some of our ambassadors joining us. That was very well received by all the media in the region. So we had the chance, to engage with the media and also send some key message across, and also involving some of our ambassadors, the likes of Luis Garcia, Mendieta, Diego Forlán, or Samuel Eto'o, among others, right? So that was one of the initiatives included, and then we also had some virtual live commentaries or Zoom watch parties where we engage with some of the influencers in each of the key markets. We had also some football pundits. You, Ash, were actually a part of the one we did in Singapore. So again, it was that helped us to provide a very good engaging and content for our fans, and also for some of our partners that we involve in the action. So in the end, it is always, like I said in the beginning of today, it's an opportunity, and we need to stay alert and be proactive and see how we can best, keep engaging with the fans. And we found out that these activations or initiatives, were well received, very well received by our fans, and which they appreciate also us thinking out of the box and coming up with new actions.
Indeed, I think it goes across the leagues as well, as Ivan said. So for Kevin, I've also been following Bundesliga on social media and seeing what you guys have been up to. And also, I think there was this story about fan cardboard cutouts, where fans could actually purchase cardboard cutouts. And on top of that, Erling Haaland's post-game interview where he, completely went viral. So what were some of the initiatives that the Bundesliga did to capitalize on fan engagement in Asia in particular?
I don't think we have we have a number of engagements. I mean, obviously, we start from a lot of it is organic from the fans itself. I think from just in Europe itself, I mean, if you take the clubs, the cutouts that you mentioned, I thought it was good to highlight because that was actually a fan initiative that was started by fans who approach a club where if they could put cutouts to support their clubs. So, and basically that went viral across the world. I mean, there were 20,000 people at the end of the whole entire season who had signed up to pay, I believe it's 19 euros to be part of that experience. Even though this is not exactly the best way to have fans back, but it shows the unity between the fans and the club itself. There's a very close relationship. Now, from our activities in Asia, I mean, we've actually engaged a number of interviews. So, for example, we've had a number of Lewandowski, who had a media roundtable with journalists across Asia. We had a number of like Muller, who had also a roundtable in Vietnam. So one part of it, obviously, is to try to keep the connections very, very close to them. And feed them news of the team, etc. And Borussia Dortmund as well has had an Asia fan activity where they had, I think, 4.9 million users watching a previous game in the archives. So what we are trying to do is, while we are not physically being able to obviously engage with them on a active level, but at least we could use digital to close and bridge the gap by providing at least news and engagement with them on the active level. So there we also had as a postseason, we've also made efforts to engage with them. Bayern Munich, when they won the league, they actually started to do, because it's able to do so in China. They had a fan party last week to celebrate their league win, and it was in Shanghai with over 300 people. There was lots of activations with the legends, with the fans. There was a football competition. But it really depends on market and based on the conditions of what we can actually do. But we are actually heavily using social media and digital to try to engage them in a more active way.
Thanks, Kevin. Now, for Vanessa, I know Rakuten has its own OTT platform where you guys produce your own original content. I've seen the Andres Iniesta trailer, which is fantastic, by the way. So what are some of the strategies that you at Rakuten did to engage Asian fans, or rather you can also say fans in general, during this period of time?
Sure, I'd love to talk about that. So if we divide things a little bit between social and OTT, basically when I took on this job, I wanted us to be very fantastic in our social approach. And that's fan-tastic, really talking to the fans, serving them the content that they really wanted. And this fantastic approach, I mean, we've tried to keep it during the pandemic. But we've also understood that there's really been a void that we needed to fill. Live games were on pause, and people were looking for other content, especially so longer form documentary, like the one you mentioned, Ash, the Andres Iniesta Unexpected Hero documentary. So I would say we almost try to speed up some of the launches. The Andres Iniesta documentary is one example. We've also been working on the Match Day documentary featuring Barcelona last season. And yeah, just in general, trying to really speed up some launches to really fill that void for fans, to have something really to do, qualitative things to do in their sort of spare time.
Now, I'm pretty sure the fans are excited as well with all the three of you and all of whatever your companies are doing to engage them. But I want to go a bit to the poll right now. So we've been having a poll on the site from our viewers. So the question is, how can clubs improve the way they engage their fans? So interestingly, we have 20% who say esports, which is not a large amount actually. We have 57% who say OTTs and exclusive content. So Vanessa, you might find that interesting. 10% say AI-driven technology will actually improve the way clubs can engage their fans. 10% say AR and 3% say others. So we have an overwhelming percentage who say OTTs and exclusive content. So Vanessa, maybe you want to comment a little bit about that?
Yeah, very interesting findings. I mean, we've been seeing the same results. Again, stories are going to live forever. We need stories. Obviously, right now, I mean, Andres Iniesta is an interesting one. We're coming up to 10 years since the World Cup win in South Africa, when obviously Andres Iniesta scored. So there's really like an Iniesta moment. So it's good to have. I think it's good to be able to look back in time to find good marketing moments for content that you're pushing out now. Even though the content doesn't necessarily treat the presence, it's good to have a marketing moment in the presence. And I think really using Andres Iniesta, who is a Rakuten ambassador, playing for a Rakuten-owned club, Vissel Kobe, and he used to be a Barca player. I mean, he's kind of, the divine trinity at the moment of like of a good asset that we're really using strategically, I would say.
Well, thanks, Vanessa. Since you mentioned content, I'm going to go to you now, Ivan. We want to speak a little bit about La Liga's communication strategy because, I mean, I received some of your press releases alongside the Bundesligas as well. So we know it's customized, and I wanted to know, like, how did you change the content to adapt to like the media so that they were able to put the content for fans that were, I guess, more relatable and interesting, especially during a period of no football. There was no training, no football. So how did La Liga come up with strategies for that?
That's a very good question. Without saying that we were prepared for a situation like it, obviously nobody was. I would say that our structure has allowed us to cope with the situation without the need to necessarily pivot our entire engagement strategy, right? So in La Liga, we see ourselves as a sports and entertainment company, and we are a content house that goes beyond match day or what happens just on the field of play. So that helped for sure. Some of our existing content has become even more engaging during this period. So, for example, the likes of clips showing on how the players keep themselves fit, during the pandemic, or vintage content from the clubs. So all this has been very well received. In terms of the communications strategy, well, it is true that we didn't have the core of our content news, but it's also true that the media outlets were hungrier than ever, for content. So in the beginning, our main focus was definitely to show our commitment with the fight against the COVID-19, especially with the dramatic situation that we have in Spain as compared to some other countries, perhaps. So that was like our main focus in the beginning, and then after that, we were also able to provide content around the protocols. For the return to training and to the competition, and all the different initiatives around the resume of the competition, and the different things that our clubs have been doing during this period. So in the end, it's been a lot of supporting or sharing with the media the different initiatives that we've been working to keep engaging with the fans, and also, like I said, using some of the content that was already very good for us, before the whole pandemic start, and put more emphasis and share with the media.
Thanks, Ivan. I mean, Kevin, I want to go to you right now because there was an interesting story about that 4 of the German Champions League clubs actually distributed, I think, 20 million euros to help the other clubs during this pandemic. So I'm pretty sure the fans, this is a good story for the fans, right? So maybe you want to comment a little bit about that.
I think I think it was a very big gesture from the clubs, Bayern, Dortmund, who were leading a lot of those initiatives. Donating 5 million euros each from their Champions League earnings towards the other clubs. I think that's a very it underlines and underscores the close relationship between the clubs, as well as the whole entire football community. If you look at the clubs and the league and the fans itself, this trinity is very close. We communicate on what we were intending to do. How can we support? We are always looking at ways. How can we sort of approach the situation and make things a little bit better. Even the fans have stepped in to also take a lot of that to support the community, buying groceries for the elderly or the at-risk fans, just doing things that actually social projects to actually make that better. The clubs itself also acknowledge that it's a very challenging situation, and a lot of the management as well as the players. I mean, if you just take Mönchengladbach or Borussia Dortmund, the players themselves voluntarily took a reduction in their salaries so that the staff, the backroom staff, are actually being paid during this difficult time, so preserving jobs. And Mönchengladbach actually, when the players initiated this gesture, 14 days later, they actually got a video from the staff itself and saying, thank you for this gesture. It means a lot to them. I think that shows the very close relationship between the fans and as well as the staff with the clubs itself. And likewise, the league is taking a careful approach in terms of managing this situation in a very careful way. And on top of that, obviously, the fans are taking initiatives to support this community. So it's a very good example of that relationship.
Now, Vanessa, I want to ask, do you think there'll be greater flexibility for brands that want to invest in sponsorship and marketing, especially that geared towards fans, especially since now more things will be online? And how can they actually do that?
Sure, I thought a little bit about this, and I think one of the challenges we used to have is actually a bit less of a challenge now. And let me explain what I'm thinking. Before, when you had, for example, you have a big activation at Camp Nou, and you're thinking in your head, am I doing this activation for the people at Camp Nou? Or am I doing this activation for everybody who's never going to make it to Camp Nou? And depending on your target, the execution varies greatly, right? But now I don't need to think so much about that part. I can actually focus my thinking on the execution, because I know the activation happening at Camp Nou will not be for the people there, because there's nobody there watching. So in that sense, I think there's definitely an opportunity in how we can work more focused going forward. And maybe just one example I want to give how we thought of this is we had on the LED at Camp Nou, we had pictures of frontline workers from all around the world. And then we had the word thank you going in 11 different languages. We also had a video accompanying this, basically taking it to, giving it a second life again on social, and where we made a story about this doctor in Barcelona working at a children's hospital. Quite an emotional piece. I know for a fact some people got goosebumps. Some people on this call got goosebumps when they saw it. So again, it's like, back to your question, the fact that you're going into a very online environment helps you focus, and it helps you do your execution better.
Thanks, Vanessa. So we're going to take a question now from our poll, I would say. It's a question from Kevin Ducat, and he says, VR and AR are being experimented with for fan engagement in North America, particularly in the NBA. So he wants to know if clubs in Europe or Asia will be the first to master and implement these technologies for worldwide fan experiences on match day, at home and at the stadiums. Do any of you want to chime in on this?
Did you say
Maybe
AR?
Vanessa?
Ivan,
Yeah, VR and AR are being so basically he's talking about the NBA, which I know is an asset of Rakuten. So perhaps you want to comment on whether you think will Asia be one of the first to master these technologies for our stadiums in our region?
I'll have a stab. I mean, with where we're going with so Rakuten now taking a big stab at the mobile network operations market, going in very strongly, and putting a lot of investment into 5G. I would say why not, but let's just hope it happens.
All right, guys, I see the ticker now at the top of my screen. So we're going to have to conclude this panel. But first, I want to ask maybe, Ivan, from each of you, what will be LaLiga's strategy to engage new fans over the rest of the season and beyond? Ivan, this one is for you.
Well, with the context of the increased attention to our matches, as well as to the situation that we are now living, our strategy basically will need to continue focusing on getting close to the non-usual La Liga fans, because we believe that the fans of La Liga, are loyal, and they're still going to be there with us. So we are going to try to focus as well on esports strategy, which we've been working there for the past 2 years, as well as La Liga Sports project that is our own OTT at La Liga. So this will help us to reach a whole new audience that we would not be able to reach if it was not for this strategy. So I think obviously digital is still going to be the best way to go, and we will continue working on the different strategies and the different projects that we always work on digital. But there's going to be a lot of new initiatives on the esports front for us that allow us to step into a group of fans that they don't traditionally consume La Liga, by watching the games or the matches on broadcast. They consume La Liga by playing esports, especially FIFA, and we'll be trying to reach out, other audiences that are not necessarily just the traditional football fans, but fans that are we can engage with through other different sports that we have ambassadors representing some of the top Spanish athletes. La Liga has our own CSR project that we subsidize 60 of the different national associations in Spain, and we try to use all these ambassadors that represent also La Liga to reach relevant audience out there. So we're gonna put a lot of emphasis on this, other than the traditional digital first approach that we've been seeing.
Yep.
But I think this is going to be important for us, in order to be able to reach out other non-traditional fans that not necessarily consume La Liga the usual way.
Now, Kevin, I want to ask also just a quick one. There's going to be a virtual pre-season tours as well, right? Bayern and Dortmund. So maybe you want to briefly tell us a bit about that, because that's going to be interesting, right?
Yeah, I'm very conscious that we only have a short amount of time, so I'll try to summarize this. Both Bayern and Dortmund immediately announced that they will be embarking on a virtual Asian tour this summer. Obviously, for example, Borussia Dortmund actually planned to actually have a physical one, and because of the current situation, they are not able to do so. So what they have done is taking a creative approach, taking their learnings, both Bayern and Dortmund, to take using digital to create a virtual stops and creating ways to engage through live sessions with their players, their legends, unveiling new jerseys, amongst others. So virtual fan meetups. So and obviously have live watch parties and having on-ground presence through creative ways by, for example, mascots on ground and giveaways. So for that, I mean, obviously, in lieu of a physical meeting, this is the next best thing, is to ensure that the fans know that they are always front and center in their plans in Asia, and engaging them through the best ways possible.
I see David there, but before we end the panel, I just want to get Vanessa's final words on how Rakuten's strategy is going to be, since everyone is going to be at home. Is it going to be still original content for you guys?
I think we're going to be doing what we've been doing, but a little bit better, because I think we all went into this knowing very little, but we have improved. And I think, back to the theme word, I mean, together. It's going to be together with partners, together with agencies, together with people like yourselves. In the spirit of togetherness, I think we're going to keep going until this world becomes a better place.
And thank you very much, Vanessa. I think you summed up fan engagement for us and the importance of being together in this difficult period. So thank you very much, Kevin, Vanessa, and Ivan, for this panel. And it's back to you, David.
Thank you very much, Ash. That was a really lovely discussion. And just to reprise a few of the themes, and Vanessa, I found that fascinating culturally. And it reminds me of a talk I heard from the English FA talking about a visit they made to Japan and some work that they've done in conjunction with the Japanese FA about the notion of success and what does success mean. And actually, culturally in Japan, perhaps it has a more sort of inclusive meaning. It's not exclusive and just about 11 players on a football field winning a football game. It's much more culturally deep than that. And I found that really interesting. And I can see how that's reflected in your Together campaign and the work done there, Vissel Kobe and Hiroshima, as you mentioned, and trying to make that connection last longer than just that first moment, giving it a second life, as you say. I mean, you're such an active brand in that way that really understands the space. So all credit to you. From Kevin, I really got the sense of access and, again, connection and community with Bayern and Dortmund making those big donations to other clubs and helping the most vulnerable in the social projects. And Ivan, well, listen, working closely with LaLiga as I have done for some time, I know about your three pillars of brand, digital, and tech, and how you reflect all of that. And actually, the Back to Win campaign was a huge success. I remember that first game back, the El Gran Derby, Sevilla against Betis, and seeing that on the stands, and it just shows how much you're mastering that side of things as well in terms of the TV coverage, and that's been very impressive with the atmospheric sound and, of course, with the virtual fans. So glad that that's being appreciated in your region as well. Fascinating discussion, and I'm sure that we could talk for much, much longer, but sadly we have to call it a close. Thank you very much indeed to Ash, Kevin, to Ivan and Vanessa. We're going to be starting in another, 7-8 minutes time with our next panel, which is on women's sport, the necessary steps for a progressive future, in partnership with Visa. So that starts at 13:50 Central European Summertime. We'll see you then.